Every beautiful music must come to an end. We have a business to handle here. And so, if you are just joining us, of course, this is Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. The program you are watching, of course, is on point. Will you be on point? Those of you listening, I know Jimmy will be on point. I know Benjamin Kofafania will be on point. We are starting right now.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Ja.
And I am Anthony C.A. in today's edition of our program On Point. I'm hosting. I have Benjamin Kofafania also joining us. Ben, it's good to have you. Welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Well, I want to say thank you. I'm always happy to be on Focus on Liberia. I believe this is one of the best places where we can dialogue and respect each other's opinion. I'm always happy to be here, and it's kind of weird today that I'm the host. So I'm happy to be here. I look forward to a vibrant and very interesting dialogue about everything Liberian. I want to welcome Mr. Eastman. I want to welcome you, Anthony, and every Liberian hearing the sound of my voice, any part of the world you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We hope that you will tune into us and you will also contribute to the program. I want to say thank you. Thank you to Mr. Gaiman for inviting me to host. I want to wish him well in terms of his health. And I'm just excited and happy to be here. Thank you very much.
All right. Benjamin Kofafania there playing the role of a host in today's edition of our program On Point. One of the co-hosts here, Jimmy Eastman from the nation's capital. Jimmy, how you doing? How's family, brother?
Hey, Anthony. Family is well. Thanks for asking. And as Ben properly said, this is one of the best platforms that you can tune into because we're very balanced and not biased toward any group at all. So I love this platform because people come and express their intellectual interest and opinions without a bias. So it's very educational. And I also want to extend well wishes to our Mr. Gaiman, Jerome Gaiman, who can't be here today. We wish him a speedy recovery and that he'll be able to join us soon. But for now, I'm looking toward a riveting discussion about the things that concern our nation and our people, so we can at least, if not fix, but bring to light issues and clarify things so that we may make better decisions.
Thank you, Jimmy. And I want to join you to wish Mr. Jerome Gidman, the lead host here on this program On Point, a speedy recovery. We know the surgery was very successful. But we have to handle the business of the nation Liberia. We are dissecting and discussing critical national issues. And talking about national issues, we have three of them that are serious and actually need serious minds to discuss. That is why three of Liberia best are here to break them down for you. Number one on our menu politically is Liberia MCC passing score credible or questionable? Well, the lead host here today, Benjamin Kofafania, is saying it is not credible. The numbers are all over the place. The place the numbers even coming from, the sources are questionable. Number two on the menu, costs and benefits of the unusual presidential travel by Liberia's president. Some call him Bekube, but his name is Joshua. He's from my hometown of Southtown. but I know what's wrong with this guy. Hey, let's talk business today. He is on an unusual trade. 7 weeks. The cause unknown. Even the finance minister can't tell us. Even his cover down, Commissioner Eugene Nambe will not tell us. But they know how much we're going to benefit. How is that possible? Well, Jimmy is here and Benjamin Kofafania is here. The one that breaks my heart, fellow Liberians. Liberia's fiasco census marked by corruption and incompetence. It's been postponed and postponed and postponed for 4 years. They can't get it right. What is going on? We will break it down for you. Well, gentlemen, let's get to it. Let me bring in the man, Benjamin Kofafania, to take the lead on the first issue, which is Liberia MCC in passing score. Is it credible or questionable? Ben, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. First thing I want to say is I've always been one of the leading voices in terms of arguing against statistical data that come from Liberia. I want to say this. Based on my experience with Liberia, it is almost impossible to get what I would call empirical data. That means data that you can actually validate. You can stand behind. You can say, well, this is it. With the MCC thing, since 2006, we've been in this MCC program. You know, some year we pass, some year we fail, some year we pass. But I've always been saying that the numbers that Liberia gave out, the numbers are usually fabrications. What I'm trying to mean is that the numbers do not reflect the actual realities on the ground. There are two things here I want Liberians listening to me to concentrate on. Number one, this year the MCC, Liberia passed in what you call employment opportunity. Employment opportunity, Liberia scored 100%. Let me just go a bit in that so folks can understand. In the world, every state has measure in terms of how they count unemployment, but we have standards. The standard says between 4% to 6%. It means that you are 100% employed. Now, in Liberia, the number 4.1%, let me just get the number exact. In Liberia, the number 4.1% has literally been stuck on Liberia. That number was imposed by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Some years back. What happened is I am discouraged that the CDC copied and pasted that same number. I mean, any Liberian living outside Liberia or inside Liberia will scratch their head if they are being told that Liberians are 100% employed. That is far from the reality. The next thing I will go into is the access to a credit. Now, in Liberia, we all know before you can access any loan from a bank in Liberia, any loan,
Ben,
you would need
I think we should take it one by one. The key issue you raised on the issue of employment opportunities in Liberia, that the MCC score Liberia 100%. I mean, that raises my eyebrows, and I think it's
right here.
With so many Liberians. And you said what you are saying is you are questioning whether this is a reality or whether this particular figure was fabricated. Because when you look on the ground, unemployment in Liberia physically is in the roof. There are men that will see uncheckered balls. So how come the MCC, that should be a credible institution, telling us Liberia score 100% in terms of employment opportunity? This is why I want to bring in Jimmy. Jimmy, the question here is, does this number reflect the reality on the ground? 100% employment opportunities in a Liberia that we know. Jimmy.
Yeah, Anthony, I'm a proud graduate of the University of Liberia.
Congratulations.
In the time when we were at university, we were taught, did math and economics, we were taught that any measure from an institution, outside institution, we need to examine closely, because these institutions do not necessarily work in our favor. They are posturing for other bigger entities, other developed nations.
Mhm.
So we need to come up with scorecards. We need to come up with an analysis of any a true analysis from our own viewpoint.
Mhm.
Let's look at this MCC. First of all, what it is. There are three basic categories of the MCC. Economic freedom, which my brother Ben was just talking about, and each of those economic freedom has 6 categories.
Mhm.
The other category is ruling justly.
Mhm.
Ruling justly has 8. Another. It has 6 categories, and economic freedom has 8 categories.
Yeah.
And the last category, investing in people,
Mhm.
that has 6 different categories within. And investing in people, we scored 1. We passed 1 out of 6.
Mhm.
So if we're
And
talking
what
about,
does that tell you? That is a good indicator there.
Right.
1 out of 6.
and you also study that human capital,
Mhm.
investing in people, is fundamental to country growth.
Mhm.
So if you're not improving your human capital at all,
Right.
your country is not going nowhere. So all those other nice factors,
Mhm.
land right access, employment opportunity,
Mhm.
gender equality, all those nice factors, they will not move the needle.
But Jimmy, I want you to close on this. Does the reality match this score given to Liberia?
But then you have to
100%
examine.
employment opportunities. That's
Let's examine how they measure. I told you have to look at those figures. How do they measure employment opportunity? That they say it's 100%. Let's find out how they measure it. Do you know what they're measuring when they say employment opportunity?
No, tell us.
They are measuring. I will tell you exactly what they're measuring. They are measuring first of all, does the Constitution explicitly guarantee every non-discrimination? Does the Constitution explicitly require schools or educational institutions to be physically accessible? Okay. Does the Constitution explicitly guarantee the right to work? The Constitution explicitly require public.
Of course, the laws guarantee those things.
This is what they're measuring.
Yeah, but
they're not measuring availability of jobs.
Yeah, so we're talking about the application, right? And that's what speaks to the reality Ben is questioning. And that's what I want you to, I get what they are mentioning. I say, well, the Constitution guarantee access to employment opportunity. A guarantee, the laws are there for any leader to govern justly, but are they governing justly? So if they are grading Liberia on the basis of the laws we have on our books and not the application thereof, then they are missing the reality. And that's where Ben comes in.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just looking at the laws, but in practice, what do we see?
So why they chose to look at the application of the laws or the standards of the procedures that actually impact life? All right.
And so let me come in.
At the law, because they should be looking at the application.
No.
And the impact the applications are having on lives.
That's what I wanted to say, Anthony. You see, Mr. Eastman is 100% right. The applications of the law, they are good. But the applications of the law, there's an expectation in terms of the result of that application.
Exactly.
There's a result. So we can enforce all the laws. If we don't see the visible results, then where is the 100% coming from?
But then are the laws even enforced?
No. What I'm saying is, for the sake of argument, let's give this to Mr. Eastman. Okay, they are looking for the application of the law, 100%. Now we are saying here now the scorecard measurement for that sector is 100%.
Yeah.
So based on the 100%, are there anything that visible signs that we can see that these measures are actually impacting Liberians? That's what I'm saying. Because you see, the laws must be applied. Those are the rules. But after the application, there must be results. So you can't tell me we are just applying the law, not expecting anything.
Exactly.
And gentlemen, because I see a deception here, and I don't know if that would be the most appropriate word for that. What I mean is, when laws are made, they are made for reasons. When programs are put into place, they are put into place for reason. All right. In terms of economic, the reasons are many. One of which would be improving the material condition of the people.
Yes.
Now, Jimmy raised something which is significant, that one of the categories of 6, Liberia passed only one, that is investing in your people. We see the Zogos, we see girls, we see young boys in the streets selling cold water, and you name it, during school hours. So we are not making the necessary investment in the human capital that will give us the growth that we need, right? So how do these people in their own mind say, well, Liberia has passed, when the application of these laws and standards that should impact people's lives are not being applied, and then they pass in Liberia?
You know, Ansel, let me come in quick. You see, that's what we are saying here. The laws are being applied. You're giving us 100%, but there are no visibility. We are not seeing it. You see, let me tell you this. Back in the day, I will just go a little bit. Americana came up with something called economic growth without jobs. That is an oxymoron. That is an impossibility. So if Liberia is scoring 100%, I mean, that's 100%. It's not like a joke. If we are giving 100%, there must be some visibility in terms of the results of those laws being applied. That's what I'm saying is, why are we getting 100%, but we are not seeing the impact? Right now, me, you are talking. They talk about access to the bank.
Access to credit.
Yes, we don't even have the necessary frameworks. We don't have that framework in place where somebody, now if you go to any bank in Liberia, you will need something called collateral. Most Liberians don't have collateral based on the amount of loans they want to take. What I'm saying here is we can apply all of these laws, but at the end of the day, I want to see visible signs that the laws that we applied are actually working. Let me give you one thing. Look at the budget of Liberia. I don't know if you guys go through a line by line. Every year since George Weah took over, or since Ellen time, we've been having something called taxes on international trade. Check out the budget, download any budget now. That has been the highest contributor to our national budget. It shouldn't be. The highest contributor to any budget should be what they call taxes on income. Taxes on income mean your people have available jobs. It's not only the government can create the enabling environment where other people can start jobs. But our number one, contributor to the budget of Liberia, check any budget, it comes from taxes on international trade. That is totally wrong. It shouldn't be that way.
Ben,
it should be taxes on income.
Ben,
so there are no jobs available.
Ben, I want you to close on access to credit, and then I can bring, then we can allow Jimmy to come in. That is key, because they are passing Liberia.
Okay, last thing I want to say on that,
right? I can't Ben, let me lay it out for you. We're giving Liberia a score of 72% when it comes to access to credit. All right. I don't know what they look at. We don't see what they see, but honestly, I don't know how many Liberians are getting access to credit. Do you know? How did they come up with this score?
The first thing I would say is, you see, it's sad for me to say this because I intend to lay Liberia. Liberia needs to be remade. Every country, there are fundamental frameworks that has to be in existence before you can say you have a functioning country or a functioning government. Anthony, right here, you can check your ID right now. When you pull your ID out, I will see your address. Behind that ID, there's your social security number. We can point where Anthony lives. Anthony can go to any office, dealership, and he can just give his name and his ID. They can run Anthony the name, and they can give Anthony access to credit. In Liberia, that fundamental framework is absent. We don't have an enforceable address system. Liberians are not uniquely identified. That means everybody don't have a unique number. So how can Anthony have access to the bank? The only way,
leave the address aspect. It is very significant. I'm not dismissing the significance of it, right? But it's like non-existent, right? So let's focus on the issue of bank accounts.
That's what I'm saying. So the only way,
credit, right? Do we have the record?
That's what I'm saying,
individuals that we can verify that these individuals, these Liberian citizens, got this amount of money. These are their bank's account. Yeah, the amounts that they received. Do we have that record?
Yeah, Anthony, you see,
Did the
I'm
MCC
trying to,
verify those things before giving Liberia 72%?
yes, Anthony, I'm trying to drive to that because you see,
Mhm.
before a bank gave you loan, you must be uniquely identified as an individual. In Liberia, the only method that I know of, maybe Mr. Eastman can come and say something else, is that people gaining access to loans or grants or whatever in the bank, they must have a collateral. They must have a collateral. That means you give something of significant value. And how many Liberians have those have anything of significant value considering the poverty rate in that country? How many Liberians? I would say maybe 95% of Liberians do not have access to credit. They do not.
Yeah, I agree with you. 95%, maybe 99%. You know, actually, that percentage does not. Jimmy, I want you to address the issue of access to credit, and I want you to look at it from Liberians having bank account. Now, the last time, Jimmy, you remember when they were doing the MAPA exercise, right? Because I want to also look at the credibility, whether or not what they're telling us is actually true. When they started the MAPA exercise, according to the report from the GAC, General Auditing Commission, the report was clear. Hey, they said they dealt with these number of foreign exchange bureaus. When the GAC verified the report from the economic management team, that was not true. Those people were not even on planet Pluto before talking about Liberia. So talk to me, Jimmy. How are the Liberians getting this credit that they're talking about? How?
Yeah, and I'm glad we're looking at the results. Okay, like we said, it's on the books, but in reality, what's the reality on the ground? This is what we're measuring.
Exactly.
First of all, what is the interest rate for the credit in Liberia?
Key.
You will find it is very, very high.
15 to 30%.
Exactly. Up to 30%. Do you know for a business person to do business and they have to pay back a 30% ratio? What kind of business, what is the average business return before you even talk about paying an interest rate of 30%? That means you have to be making more than 30% profit before you can pay that back. So that alone shows you that even if you get credit, what are the chances? Are you successfully going to meet those payments? Two, just like Ben was talking about, yes, you need collateral. Before you can get a loan, you have to put up a bond. You have to either put up property, a house, a building, or somebody has to stand behind you, put up collateral for you. And you will find that the Liberians, all the Liberian business people, they complain that they can't get credit when they go to the bank. And this is what is ruling them out. First of all, they don't have enough collateral to put up. And even if they do have the kind of collateral they need, the interest rate is so high that the chances of them paying back the loan they are slim. If a bank knows you're only going to make a 10% profit, but you have to pay 30% interest, they're going to say no. You're not going to make enough money to give to pay back this loan. They have to look at your feasibility, the feasibility of you paying back the loan. So they complain it's not enough. It's the situation. We don't have credit. We can't get into this business. This is only open to people of who already into business, like the Lebanese merchants or the foreign merchants. But for typical Liberian entrepreneurs, the conditions are not favorable for them to get loans. So they're out of the market. They complain about this all the time. So again, even though on the books credit is there, but in actuality, our people are not able to get the credit because they can't meet these high standards. They can't meet.
And Jimmy, you remember at some point, it was easy. I mean, very difficult for Liberians owning bank accounts to even get their own money. Some of them even had to bribe, tellers at the bank. People were on lines. The people couldn't get money from the ATM. I remember I think the U.S. Embassy put on a release There's a group of Americans that have traveled to Liberia who even said that, look, it's not easy to get your own money from the bank. So for them to be giving Liberia 72% when you're talking about access to credit, people own money, they can't get it from their own banks, right? And you are telling us that institution or banking institution, including government, giving credits to people, and and then you talk about the issue of collateral and all that. So my final question here for us to move to the next issue is it safe now to say these numbers are fabricated, or they are only looking at the standards, the laws, the procedures put into place that Liberia has put into place, some procedures? Because in the case of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, they established a lot of institution, LSCC, GSC, and all that. And on that basis, say, well, things are in place now, let's pass Liberia. Is this why we're saying, are they now looking at the application, and not only the application, the impact thereof? Why are they looking at specifically here? I'm not sure they're looking at the impact. If not, this would be a failure.
But let me just chime in quickly before Ben comes in.
Please.
You're making a point, but remember now, what is the MCC? Why was it created? Okay, there are other indices that can tell you about the other things we want to measure, but this is simply created to enable United States to lend certain countries loans or grants or stuff like that. This is what they're interested in. Okay. Now, the practicality of it, there are other metrics and indices around the world. The IMF has some, the World Bank has some, the trade organization has some that will measure the effectiveness of our programs, of our laws. So this is not measuring the effectiveness of it, but it's only to give the United States say, well, okay, they don't have any slaves in that country. Okay. They don't have a dictatorship in that country. Okay. That is all they care about. But we need to go deeper. Okay. But at least this provides a way for the country to get loans and grants to help the situation.
And Ben, I want you to close on that. Will you say these numbers are fabricated, or are they just based on what actually being put into place and not actually the reality on the ground, the impact on the ground? Are these numbers fabricated?
I would say the numbers are fabricated because number one, the numbers do not reflect reality. I just want to read something short on what we discussed about, like the economic opportunity. This indicator, listen to what it says here. Listen to what it says here. It say that it encourages government to invest in policies that drive economic growth and poverty reduction. Now, when we're driving economic growth and poverty reduction, what is the end result of that? And now people are getting employed. People are getting jobs. So if we are doing that, and now this is the one thing you said. I want to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to earn a fair wage. You see, these are the kind of things, when you put all these things in place, when you are actually invested in doing what the policies are demanding, there will be considerable results in terms of the transformation of the people's lives. So somebody cannot tell me that it is only okay we just set them in place and give somebody a pass. You see, because if you say that to any government, they will set up the framework, they will pass. But what is the reality in terms of the transformation of the people's lives? Because for me, I'm not interested in just passing. I'm interested in passing to the extent where my people's lives are impacted. That's what I'm talking about. You see, so we can pass any metrics. I'm not going to pass all the metrics, but look at Liberia today. Look at Liberia. So if we just set up all these institutions, and nothing in terms of transformation happened to the lives of our people.
But I'm not sure Amara Collins passed all the metrics. I don't know what you mean by that. You mean the Johnson administration?
No, Amara Collins passed a few of the MCCs.
Okay. I think they had 10 out of the 20, and
that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying
government got 12 out of the 20.
No, what I'm saying is, that was a story. What I'm saying is, they passed a lot. CDC since their time, they passed only one.
Yeah.
You see, so we passed, but
Yeah,
look
but we
at
have to be fair to the CDC. It only been in office for 5 years. You know,
that's what I'm saying.
they had 12 years, so it's
You see,
obvious.
so look at Liberia today,
Mhm.
and what did the past? I mean, what was the impact of the past on the lives of Liberians? That's what I'm saying. We can pass all these metrics,
And
but if
gentlemen,
they don't impact Liberians, then for me, it's all smoke and mirrors.
and let us conclude with this celebration from our finance minister Samuel Tue. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to see the video. There was a dinner in his honor. I understand. I think it was taking place took place at the Morovia City Corporation, City Hall. And Tue was sweating profusely. He was speaking boisterously. He was all over the place. And this guy was sounding as though Jesus Christ has arrived in Liberia with billions. And I was just looking around. Can you even get the first dollar first before you do this? I mean, what does it say about how much pressure was on this finance minister when it comes to this scorecarding? Because at some point, even the president said, well, we'll talk to the Americans to give her a study class teacher since we can pass. Talk to me. It's quick, the woman age.
You know, to conclude what both of you are saying, there's an old Liberian saying. They say numbers don't lie.
Right.
Yeah.
They say figures don't lie, but liars figure.
Yeah.
They figure how to pass. That doesn't mean they've improved the situation. They just figure how to get a passing grade. If we're not measuring the effect, in fact, this is a general problem, what I've noticed throughout. If we're not measuring.
And do we know how these data, the data collected? Who's giving the data to the MCC folks? They themselves.
It depends on. They got different organizations collecting the data. So IMF is collecting. But again, we're just talking about what's on the books. A lot of it, not the practicality of it.
That's what we are talking about. Yes.
Okay. So they figured how to get, but we have to measure every single year all our projects, all the salaries we pay. We have to measure the productivity. If we're not measuring what we're doing, how will we know if we're going ahead or we're going behind?
Exactly.
And that is one of the things nobody wants to talk about, because that will be holding people accountable for not being effective. So we can borrow all this hundreds of millions. We can borrow $1 billion. But if we invest in projects and not measuring the effectiveness of the project, then where are we going?
Where are we going?
Where are we going? We don't know. You know, and this is why our younger brother, Mr. Tue, he's our younger brother from LU. All you have to measure these things. That is the only way you're going to move the country. If you refuse to measure, then you refuse to progress.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Jimmy, you might have said it all, that I think figures don't lie, but it's just that they figure out
exactly.
And because for me, I'm focusing on the practicality. I'm focusing on the impact on the people. All right, because if you look at these indicators, if you look at the categories, there's things that are said, we don't see those things in the life of the people. All right, and so focus. I just look at this thing. Well, this is just something for intellectual, purposes. Because if this thing is about improving lives, and then they are passing them, are they passing it on the basis of improving lives? Are they passing them on the basis that there's transparency in the system, that we can see that these things are verifiable? These things are not verifiable. How can we see them? Because come to think about it, and this will take us into our next topic, we have a government that cannot tell us how many percent on the president's delegation. And then they're going to tell us how much money they've been giving to people who are accessing credit. Really? Gentlemen, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the next issue. President George, we are unusual presidential trip, 7 weeks. We will be right back. Stay tuned for.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
And I am Anthony C.A. with my partners here, Benjamin Kofa Afania, playing host role today, as well as Jimmy Eastman, co-host of our program here on Point. Gentlemen, let's move into our next issue here, cost and benefit of the unusual presidential trip. Ben, we will let you to start on this one since you are playing lead. Talk to us about this trip. I classify it as an unusual trip. Talk to us.
Yes, the first thing I want to say about the trip is there's only one leg I know I'm a bit more about. That is the leg that ends in
Morocco?
DC.
Oh, DC.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because from Liberia to Morocco, I know it was a short trip, but just like what you said before we came into this, we don't even know how many people are on the trip. We don't know the size of the delegation. We don't know. Then we don't know the cost attributed with this trip. Then the length of the trip, like you said, it is totally. This is what we call unprecedented. This never happened before for somebody to be away from the States for almost 7 weeks. It's unprecedented. But at the end of it, those responsible ministers, and those who want to speak to us regarding this trip, they are not giving us sufficient details in terms of the questions we are asking. At the very least, we should know how many people are accompanying the president. At the very least. Mm-hmm. And at the very least, we should know what kind of benefit Liberia will accrue from this trip. At the very least, we should know that. But, there's been so much secrecy and so much hush-hush. And, it is unfortunate. Anthony and myself and Mr. Eastman can come on this show and discuss this trip. But we have representatives of the people, elected representatives. At least they can even hold an inquiry into this and say, well, what is going on? We just need to know the details. At the very least, we should know the size of the presidential delegation. We should know. Because Liberia is spending money. Every day, these people are outside Liberia. I'm talking about significant sum of money. So I think it's unfortunate. I will let you guys, go on, and I will come back in. But for me, it is highly disturbing that the officials that have come out to the media, they've literally said nothing. Samuel 12 on Spoon TV saying he doesn't know the total cost of the trip. And you are the finance minister. You said you approved something that you cannot reveal the number. You don't know how much it costs. This is troubling. It is troubling. Anthony, I will turn things over to you so you can.
Thank you. And I have said a lot about this trip. The first leg from Liberia to Morocco, according to Len Eugene Namwe, the think tank group that invited the president and the delegation pay for the trip. They charter the jet. They're responsible for the hotel and the feeding of a sitting president of our country. Eugene Namwe said that was not in conflict with any laws in our country. I disagree with him. That is a flagrant violation of the Code of Conduct of 2014.
Yep.
The president of Liberia cannot take any gift.
Any gift
above $200, he cannot.
Yes.
And you are talking about, we don't even know the number of persons on the delegation. Some people are saying 55. I won't doubt it, because we were right here when the president took 55 people to China. We were right here when the president took more than 100 people to COP26. We were right here. To this date, we don't know how much was spent on our trip. So for him to be telling us a think tank group financed hotel, feeding, charter jet of a sitting president, that is violation of our laws. Look, let's be clear here. If we have men and women in the national legislature, their brother will be impinged. Look, I don't like when people can bring sentiments into these issues. We have to respect our laws if we want to be respected. And that is why I question the whole thing about MCC. You are passing these people based on laws set into place when the application is completely contrary to the reality on the ground. Seriously, and Jimmy, I will bring you in. That is why we don't know how much Finance Minister can tell us. Information Minister is yet to speak on this. I don't know why he even have a job at this time if he can't give us basic information. The first information they uploaded to the e-marshal, they took it down. They were embarrassed by their own information that they placed on the website. We'll come to some numbers here, but let Jimmy come in. We'll compare the Wia's trip with the Ellen trip she made. I think it was 13 days trip, and you will see the numbers and you will cry for Liberia. There's a reason why they're not telling us. Jimmy, let's hear you.
Yeah, Anthony, I want to tell you something very confidently too. It's not that they don't know how much they're spending, but the amount they're spending is so outrageous. They rather just tell you they don't know. Because at least you will run where you don't know what it is. But if they were to tell you how, because there are uncertain costs to presidential visits. It's a lot of times it's an open purse. There are incidentals that will occur, and all of a sudden there even is a budget, and it can even exceed the budget because of the uncertain costs that prevail in presidential visits. It's not that they don't have the numbers. It's not that they don't know how much padam they made available. Those people already collected their padam. At least they could tell you, say, well, we have dispersed this amount of money for padam because they know those figures. We have paid this amount of money for the cost of airplane fuel, pilot, or whatever. There are some sums they could give you, but they're not trying to give you that information. They rather it be that because they will have to explain what is the benefit of spending all this money. So instead of being embarrassed by having to explain all of that, we'll just say, oh, well, the budget, we don't really know all the budget. A lot of it is paid for by foreign countries. No, well, we're paying, we're footing that bill. That bill is being foot by the Liberian government. But we do have a right to know. Exactly. And this is some of the things, this is why we're supposed to have a democracy where the Senate or the legislature can demand these figures. But if the branches of government are not functioning properly, serving as a check and balance, okay, that is why we see all this going on. Of course, that information is available. I can guarantee you they know what figures they've been spending already. That's Jimmy, how it's operated. But Jimmy, they're not disclosing it to us.
Jimmy, I couldn't agree with you that they know the figure, but they know that that figure is so high, and it will show how insensitive they are, and it will show how the apparatus are all over the place. And they know the Liberian people are not going to be happy with that. Now, Ben, before you come in, wasn't this finance minister summoned by the Supreme Court for non-payment of salaries and allowances for 2 months? We're talking September and October here. It's obvious these guys are spending, $1.5 million on this president trip. Don't we see enumerators protesting for their little per diem they're supposed to give them to carry on the census? Isn't the lack of funding one of the reasons why the census that we'll be talking about later on is a fiasco today? Don't we know that the legislature of Liberia has not been paid for 2 months? Because if they will come and tell Liberians that, hey, it's $1.5 million for the president trip, what would the people at the judicial branch of government say? Oh, we are not Liberians too, and everything has to be good for the president, and we get to struggle. There are many Liberians who have not taken pay. People are protesting nearly everywhere. And so that is why they don't want to cut the number. But here's the thing, then, quickly. Samuel 12 said the president is entitled for food on a daily basis while he's on a trip, 2,000 United States dollars. That's the only information he was prepared to tell us.
Yeah.
When Eugene Nambwe had the opportunity to speak, he said, well, individuals or members of the president delegation, they are entitled to about $140 to $50 a day just for the food. That is excluding their hotels. And we have some numbers here that Ben will be crunching for us. Ben, quickly, let you there.
Yeah, you see, Mr. Ismail raised an interesting point. You see, what's happening to Liberia is a combination of issues. Now, what bothers me today as we discuss this, we have a legislature that is dominated, I use that word very importantly, dominated by the opposition. Dominated. The opposition have more lawmakers than CDC. It is dominated by opposition lawmakers, but as we speak on these issues today, we are ordinary Liberians. Why? Why is there no inquiry? Why is no one saying, no, we must call somebody to come and tell us what's going on here? I mean, at the very least, Liberians should know the presidential delegation size. At the very least, we don't know how many people on the trip. So we don't even know how many monies is being spent. So where are these people who were elected to provide checks and balances, to ensure that the state is ran or managed properly? Where are our lawmakers? So, George Weah can do anything, Twer can do anything. We have three separate but equal branches of government. The lawmaker, they are the elected representatives of the people. So if they are not doing anything, of course, the government will get away with anything. So, it hurts me to see that we have a legislature. If it was CDC lawmakers that were more there, I would say, well, that's the same group. But the opposition dominate our legislature. So what are they doing? I haven't heard any major opposition leaders speak on this issue. I haven't heard it. Maybe they have. I have not heard it. Cummings is there. Boakai is there. There are other people. I've never heard them registering publicly their protest in terms of what's going on. So what is going on here? We can be doing their job. I should not be. I'm here to host this show today, but I shouldn't be doing their job. They should raise their voice in terms of protesting what's going on.
Ben,
we don't know. No. What hurt me about the trip is, the leg for the World Cup. I am told that, I don't know for sure. Everybody can be happy about their son going to World Cup. I will be happy it was my son. But the thing is, it should not be part of a trip that is funded by the government of Liberia. George Weah can go see his son anytime you want. I will give him heads up, more power. But it shouldn't be done on the Liberian people's dime. It should be done on his personal resources. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he has every right to go and see his sons play. I would cheer him up too if it was my son. But this trip cannot be funded by the people and government of Liberia to go and watch the World Cup. No. That's why the lawmakers and stakeholders need to raise their voice. This is an abuse of power. It's an abuse of authority. Thank you, Anthony.
Ben, you are right there. And I think the political leaders you mentioned, it's obvious they might have spoken about it. Usually what they do is just lecture us, and tell their supporters, hey, President Weah is doing it. They cry like babies, and that's all the thing they can do. Some of these things require serious political actions. And so I tell these people, I'm a protest guy. And then sometimes you have to protest, and for the people to see that the leader that who wants to lead them is actually serious. Anybody can talk. We are talking right now. We are providing the information. Then you nail it. President Weah has absolute right to go and see his son play. It's a proud moment for any father. Jimmy is a father. I'm a father. You are a father. Why would anyone not want to be at an event where their son is playing and the whole world is watching? This is a proud moment. But should he be using Liberian people's money to go and see his son play? There's zero exception to that. Only a reckless and irresponsible leader would do that and would care less. And then we will have lawmakers who think it's okay for the president to go and see his. The reason why President Weah is there is to see his son play, period. Now, this lecture that President Weah has been invited. So I demand the invitation. President Weah is an icon of this game. If he's invited by the football governing body, they will issue him an invitation letter. And as our president, we need to see that invitation so that we can be clear and not guess whether or not he was being invited. But are a handlers going to give us any such invitation? Are we entitled to it? Yes. Will they give it to us? No. Why? Because they are lying. They are lying, and that's what it is. And Jimmy, before you come in, I want us to look at the numbers a little bit. Benjamin Kofa-Fania wrote an article sometime back in 2013. Is that correct, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Sometime back, Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf was on a 13-day trip. That was between September 19 to the 1st of October. And Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf time, the compensation for Ellen delegation and the entire trip was huge. We have some numbers to show you. And the reason, Jimmy said it right, that people in the CDC not telling us, CDC government not telling us how much being spent on this trip, because the numbers are either higher than what Ellen administration provided at the time. Now, yeah, some numbers here, and then you're going to help me to break these numbers down. One, incidental allowance, US 2,000 times 5% on the 13-day trip, because at that time, she went with 5 officials of government that we knew at the time. So each of them was getting $2,000. All right, times 13 days, that's $130,000. That is not the only money that was spent on them. Now, in addition to that, US 1,500 a day on hotel charges times 5% times 13 days, that's 97,500. And Josh, we had trip is 7 weeks. We don't know the total number of persons. In 2013, when Ellen made that trip, she went to Canada. She went somewhere else. She carried 5 persons. Hotel alone per person, 1,500. Times 13 days times 5%, that was 97,000. I bring the allowance aspect back. $2,000 per person, 5% times 13 days, that's 130,000. So, folks, now if you put all that together, the first class air ticket, the entire trip, Moravia to Canada, to New York, Costa Rica, estimated at 9,000 per person equals 45,000 for the 5-man team. This is a conservative estimate. Now, when you put all the numbers together, including the president herself, we are talking about 272,000 per person for that 13 days trip at a time. We're talking about 5%, excluding the president and the security details. You're talking about 272,000 per person on a 13 days trip. And we're talking what? We're talking 7 weeks. We don't even know. Chances are that the Weah people numbers are more than what Ellen had, because these people have been copying and pasting just about everything Ellen did. This is what they've done. This is why they don't want to tell us this number. Ben, you drill on those numbers a little more.
Yeah, you see, when you look at these numbers, especially so you look at the economic state of Liberia, you ask yourself, why? Why? You see, when you have the opportunity to lead people, one of the principal things that should guide you is never abuse power. Never abuse power. Because you see, this huge cost, it comes on the heel of, there's no rights in Liberia, how do you call it,
Census.
Lawmaker people are not getting paid, how do you call it, census,
judge.
Enumerators not getting paid. And what it kind of brings to my mind, what are the priorities of the government? What are the priorities? Could we have foregone this trip, or could we have adjusted this trip in a manner where we save money? Because this is, you see, for me, it is hard for me to crunch what George Weah did, because number one, I don't know the size of his delegation, and you see, everything is hidden. So we cannot crunch anything if we know the size. And I will tell you this, I have all the numbers from their own website. I can crunch the number almost down to a T, but I don't know how many people are on this trip. And like Anthony said, for 7 weeks, probably people will scream when they hear the total amount of that trip. So
I can tell you the total amount. Ben,
yeah,
$10 million is for this trip.
US dollar?
million trip.
US
This
dollars?
is a 10 million. You know now I'm talking about LD. $10 million for this trip. I looked at your numbers and I did some interpolation and analysis on it. It's about $10 million easily.
Well,
7 weeks, $10 million.
Well, you know what? Now you know what they will say. Anybody can come back and say the first thing is you don't know how many people are on the trip. You see, that's the first pushback they will come with. You see, for me, until I can have an idea of how many people are on the trip, then I can come up. Because what happened, even if they come up with $9 million, they will say, oh, Mr. Ismail said, well, $10 million, that's not even $10 million. You see, that secrecy is what I want our lawmakers to demand. At least how many people are on this trip.
Ben, you know how we count crowds? Yeah, I told you I had a little bit of background way back in my life of statistician. You know how we count crowds? We don't count every person that goes in the stadium or every person that goes to a parade or anything. We measure amount of people within a time interval. We take a time interval from, let's say, 1 minute to 10 minutes. And if 100 or 1,000 people cross that interval in that time, then we multiply that interval by the length of people going in. So we can forecast the whole crowd or counting them just by counting the people that pass within an interval.
Yeah.
So on the ordinary, we've seen the size of these delegations. This is we can say maybe about 50 people went easily. 50 people, giving your numbers that you just gave us, times the length of stay for 7 weeks, easily about $10 million. I will lowball it, $10 million easily.
Now, one last thing I want to say, one last thing before Anthony comes in. The number I gave, it is not my personal number. I only multiply it by the people on the trip and the leg of. Let me tell you why. The $2,000 is published rate from the government of Liberia. It's on the internet. You can find it. The 1,500 is the published rate for hotels. Those are not my numbers. The only thing I estimated there, I did estimate the cost of flights. That was all. But those two, those first two, they are published rates from the government of Liberia. But what you said, if it would amount to that much, then this is enough reasons why people should be advocating for George Weah to be impeached. Because I would say it's a waste of meager resources. It's a waste. I mean, why do you spend that much money on a trip when we have pressing priority items at home? The census right now is a debacle. We have people crying. There's non-availability of rice in the country. And we take $10 million, if I would take your count, to spend on this trip. We have to prioritize Liberians. We have to do that. So this is an abuse of power.
Ben, you are using the words abuse of power and waste. I will use the word wickedness. How can your people are not paid, including judges and associate justices in the country? Ordinary Liberians who rely on a little meager salary, like nurses and doctors, have not taken pay. You want people to condone census, you can't even give them their training fees. Can you imagine that? I had Larry Nyankwa yesterday. He is the legislative focused person on the census, on legis, right? And he said the training that was conducted was poorly managed, was poorly done, poorly managed, poorly executed, and those who sat the census were not given what should have been given to them for sitting the training. What they're giving them now is what they should have given them when they sat for the training. And on the day they started the census, which is the 11, I believe was for yesterday, they should have given them another compensation for them to use a transportation to go in the field. So they are now paying these people. And then on top of that, the president is, if Jimmy information is correct, that $10 million, even if that is at $2 million, that is wickedness. Because what are we going to get from this trip? Jimmy, what are we going to get from the president going to watch his son playing of the World Cup? What are we going to get from the trip to Morocco? Eugene Lamwe, who does not know how much the trip costs, had the audacity to tell us Liberia stands to benefit around 50 million. So Jimmy number might be reasonable here. So he is telling us, look, we are spending 10 million, we're going to get 50 million. That is what Nambe was trying to explain to us. We are not stupid here. This is the big saying in Liberia. Nobody's stupid here. That's the reason they don't want to call the number. Gentlemen, this is unbelievable. The level of wickedness being displayed by this government. I mean, these are so-called indigenous who brothers and sisters have not taken pay for months. And we are who they say cares about Liberia and love Liberia is taking 10 million. If this is even 2 million, it's unacceptable. Leads to talk about 3, 4, 5 before a 10 million. It's obvious 12 will not call a number. It's obvious Namwe will not call a number because it will show that they are heartless and they are wicked and no other way they could have exposed themselves in that manner. That is why they will not call the number. We'll take a short break. We'll turn on the census and we'll let folks come in to I'm fired up today. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable, gentlemen. You are watching On Point. I'm on point. Jimmy is on point. Benjamin Kofa-Fanel is on point. And when you call, be on point or else we'll take you off the line.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
And I'm Anthony C.A. We will bring you our last point of discussion today, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in. Gentlemen, let's look at Liberia's Fiasco census marked by corruption and incompetence. Jimmy, you're going to start first on this one.
Okay,
a little bit of statistics before. Go ahead.
You know, there's this particular thing that had this fiasco is scary, and I'm about to say why it's scary. It is one thing that the preparation was not made. People were not trained early enough. Equipment had not been received. It's one thing that it was known fact that we had not done the proper preparation. It was known. Okay. The other thing was known. It was known that looked like there was some misappropriation of some funds. We've been hearing about people writing checks against it and the account being emptied and all of that. So that would tell us the logistics were not there. But the scary part of this whole thing is why they allowed the president to declare a holiday for people to stay at home when they knew they could not carry out the census. Why would you embarrass the administration that way? You know, we have a saying in Liberia, we say small shame better than big shame. We had to tell them, so, well, you know what? We're not prepared. We need a little more time. The Senate would have granted, and even with some reservations, they would have granted them the time. But why would you allow people to stay home, not earn a living, and then you don't carry out, and you knew you couldn't carry it out? It is known. I mean, we from you know, just what we're talking about, we can forecast things sitting way here. We knew what was going on the ground. The people were not being trained. People talk. The social media today is so great that you know you get first-hand information way ahead of time. So we were well aware that they were not being prepared. They needed more time. They should have been prepared 2 years ago. That's when they should have prepared for the census today. But they're not. And they needed more time. Then we know there were issues with the funding. We heard that there were issues with the funding. And we don't remember when this funding was ever addressed to say, no, there is enough money in the accounts for us to do this. No one came out and debunked this the fact that we didn't have enough. It was just left. And then on top of it, you allow the administration to call a holiday when you knew you weren't going to do anything. I think that's the most scariest thing in the world. I have seen people try to avert, being embarrassed. But when you allow us, it's like all of us go to we invited to a dinner. You don't have money to have this dinner. But you invited all of us. Anthony Kamwe, he hung up. And Ben been running all day, exercising. He hungry. He get to the dinner then, no food. Oh, but you call us to dinner then no food?
All we ate, the cashier came to collect the payment. And this guy is saying,
why would you do that? It doesn't, as the host, why would you embarrass yourself like that? Instead of telling the people, look, we can't do it today. We'll do it another day. So I think that means we better be very careful. Anyone who can allow us to jump in, to go to this level, to conduct an exercise like this, and only to fail so grossly, we have to be careful, because that could be something worse tomorrow.
Well, I think, Mr. Ismail, let me come in. You see, the first thing I would say, I think you've been a little bit kind. This failure that we have experienced, it undermines any claim the CDC had to re-election. Let me go down the line. The census, the last one we held was in 2008. The census is not like a joke. It's law. The census is law. So the next one should have been held 2018. And let me tell you guys this. That is, we have 14 years between when the last one was held. When CDC just took over, listen to this. The CDC said there was no money. Because when they just took over, it was time for a census. The CDC claimed the UP took the money away from the census. But what happened? Every appropriation was made for themselves. Lawmakers continued to get paid. Ministry of State continued to get a huge amount. EPS continued to get a huge amount. There were budgetary allocations made for institutions, but not for holding the national census. They kept pushing. Let me tell you guys, maybe you guys don't know this. The cost of the census in Liberia is literally 18.9 million. 18.9. As we speak today, the Ministry of State has a 20 million budget. Just the Ministry of State. The cost for holding the census is 8. And let me tell you guys what you guys don't know, how we are losing on this. Now it has been pushed up. In December, the government of Liberia have obligatory payments, whether they want it or not, because they have made arrangement with some other people. They have to pay them $695,000 literally for doing no work. The next date they have is next year. It's next year in March. They will have to fork over additional money, like money paying to people for doing no work. So what we've had here, I don't want anybody to tell me that they were not, prepared. We had, this is not 1 day, 1 month, or 1 year. We had 4 years since the CDC took over. We had 4 years to prepare for this census. They cannot tell me they were not prepared. This is incompetence. This is the total breakdown. It's a lack of leadership. And just like what you said, Mr. Eastman, the president went ahead and declared a day where people should stay home. I will tell you this, a year before that census, I will be following up with that team every week. You get status quo. Where are you? Where are we? What is this? What needs to be put in place? You have to follow up as a leader. I understand that this is an institution, but as a leader, the buck stops with the president. You have to follow up, because no matter what, everything that fails in Liberia get put at your feet. You are the leader. This is years in the making, and we have this kind of flop. I don't know if Liberians will stay home next time if the president declares a holiday, but let me tell you this, the importance of a census, in Liberia, I think people joke, we started this show with numbers. The census number is critical for government planning. It's critical because that's how you apportion resources. This is not like a joke. It's a serious event because how would the government of Liberia plan for the next 1 or 2 years? Now the figures won't be accurate because if they declare another day, I can guarantee you most people will go about their normal businesses thinking that it will be it will be yet another flop. This is a failure and it undermines any claim the CDC has for re-election. This is a total breakdown. Right now, we don't even know any. Okay, this is what I expected. With this breakdown, I expected the president, no matter where he is, to assemble his team and bring accountability to bear on the people who are responsible for this debacle. We are sitting up to nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows any other stuff. So, we're going to push it down the road. We're going to kick the can down the road. But let me tell you this. If the census is not conducted accurately, it could negatively impact the elections of next year.
Ben, you spoke well. You spoke to the gravity of the issues we're talking about. This is a serious matter. They have had a significant amount of time to prepare. On the issue of money, the legislative focal person, Larry Nyankwe, Representative Larry Nyankwe of Nimba County District Number 8, he's the chairman on governance as well. He did demography at the University of Liberia. He worked for the United Nations before for his expertise in that area. He played a key role in Census 2008. And prior to that, he took part in another census that took part in Liberia. This man is well placed to be Liberia's legislative focused person on legis, or the census in particular. He cried. He communicated with the host leadership, Buffer Chimba. He wrote a letter. He said, look, I know what I'm talking here. Dating requires serious preparation, training. You have to get the tools. And he even demanded that Samuel Twe appear to answer questions when it comes to the funding. But he said the host leadership on Buffer Chimba, she the Samuel Twe. This is how these people are heartless. These people are not serious for leadership. Your country, you don't know the population. It is a constitutional mandate for the people to be counted. You are the speaker, and you are shielding a finance minister whose responsibility it is by law to find the money. The lawmakers are calling this man, and you are hiding him. Larry Yankwe said, what was budgeted for the conduct of census, which is around 18.5 million, was just 3 million from our own government. The rest of the money, they want to beg foreigners to come up with the money to count their own people. Jimmy, this is how unserious it is. Ben is right. Ben is right. The Ministry of Presidential Affairs gets 20 million. 20 million in the budget. They cannot budget even 5 million for census to count Liberian citizens. What has been budgeted for census was 3 million. Now, if you divide 3 by 20, folks, those of you who good at math, you know the figure. Joshua gets 4 times more money than what has been set aside for census. What does that tell you, people? What does Joshua do? Does he even sit in office? The Ministry of Presidential Affairs, do it have branches in the counties? Of course not. It is the Ministry of Internal Affairs that in the counties to the superintendents and other people. So the Ministry of Presidential Affairs, what does it actually do? How many persons are in it employed in the first place for it to be getting $20 million, far more money than what the judiciary branch of government gets? To those of you who love Joshua, I love him too. But I just happen to love this country better. How can these people disgrace us in this manner? Now, the partners that are working with them, the partners were clear. They said, look, you will train your own people. You will deploy your own people. You will be responsible to pay the people. We will just make the funding available. The partners train the trainers who are Liberians to conduct the training. They should have set up centers in all the counties to conduct the training. They failed miserably. On the day of the census, when the president had declared holiday for Liberian. He was not in the country to show leadership. That I am home. The cameras are there for me to be counted. Make sure you are counted. He's out of the country for who knows what. This is how this man lost this country. So let's put Joshua aside. Samuel 12 plays a supervisory role at alleges. I understand he is the chairman for the board. And on the date of the census, this guy was just running from one place to another. And Samuel 12 Pekin, let me use the Liberian language, who works with him at the Ministry of Finance. Samuel 12 was brave on cameras to tell us that that man received a whopping $160,000 because, unquote, this guy is doing publicity through his Facebook page. This guy is not a media institution, for Christ's sake. Then these people, they are your friends. I'm exhausted here. What is going on? And they disgrace our nation in this way. This thing was postponed for 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 again. How many years do you need to prepare for this census? We are a laughing stock. The partners are just looking at us and say, who are these people? And Larry Youngwell was on point. He said, Lord, Anthony, the people who are hailing Ledger don't have the requisite qualification to be there. They are not qualified. They don't know what they're doing. I informed the leadership of the house. And yet, Georgia maintains the people. Worse, they are indicted. Many of them are indicted. And yet they serve. I give up on this country. We have to go to the phone line, gentlemen. We can't talk it all. We'll take a short break. And folks, get your phone lines ready to participate. We want to hear you, man. We want to hear you. We have to. I mean, hey, this war has been over. Rwanda went through war. They are doing well. They are manufacturing cars in Rwanda. When will we get there? And this is your law for Joshua to justify every nonsense that Twe does and Mange does? He wouldn't even fire a Mange who was indicted. This guy is running. Lord help us. We'll take a short break. We will be right back to take your call.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
As soon as you here on point, Jimmy is seated, Benjamin Kofafan is seated. We are exhausted talking about this country. The issues are serious. Our leaders are jokers. We can move ahead when our leaders are jokers. We want to hear from you. Call the number 605-313-6004. Enter the code 791403#. I'm not reading comments today. I'm mad as hell. I just want to hear you talk to me about this country called Liberia. We have to move forward. Giving up is not an option. Ben is running for president. They will say, well, we don't know him. He's in America. But yet they celebrate George. We are sons. Some of them even want him to play for Liberia when he is an American. How are these people twisted in their mind? I don't get it. I don't get it. Somebody, your own Liberian citizen will come from here and say, I want to try. I want to contest. Oh, you just come in. That means an American citizen. But you love George so much that he can spend your country money to go watch his son to play soccer. And you're okay with it. The number to call, 605-313-6004. We want to hear from you. We can't wait any longer. The numbers is in the scrolling text below. The number is also posted on Facebook and YouTube for you to call. Gentlemen, while we wait for the calls, let me hear from you, Jimmy. I think you can hear my frustration there.
You know, Liberia is not unique in some of these things that are going on. Mm-hmm. We're talking about right now, we're talking about self-serving legislature. They're more concerned about their interest than the country's interest. But there are many ways to change this. And if you're gonna offer criticism, then you have to offer solutions. One way is to keep the legislature straight. is to have limited terms. This 9-year term for representatives and 6-year senators, it's by far too large. These people will not be accountable because of that. They have fixed it. They have rigged it so that for 9 years they can do nothing and nothing can happen to them. If their terms were limited, like 4 years, like how it was before for a senator, 2 years for a representative, these people will have to perform or they will be removed. So to straighten one thing, we have to press that this term, these long senatorial and representative terms, they need to be shortened, because we need greater accountability. We need to vet these people over and over again to keep them in line. This is essential for our democracy, because that is the check and balance. And if we're not going to put these checks and balances in place, we don't have a functioning system. The other thing I like to mention before my brother Ben comes in, all this money we borrowing, I'm afraid of, if we're only borrowing money to pay salaries, if you're not investing in the country, investing either in education and health, investing in businesses and industry, you will not be in the next 5 years, next 6 years, you'll not go anywhere. We'll be at the same place. So this money, soon we get money, then we can pay this, they can pay this off, we can pay this salary. That is not what I want a year. I want to say when we get the 51,000 from 51 million from here, we're going to put it in this industry. We're going to open up our mining industry. We're going to open up our agricultural industry. We're going to open up these things. We hear about roads, but no, you need industry. Roads facilitate industry. But that's not what gives you the money. You need industry. So if our loans is just dig hole, cover hole, no, we're not going anywhere. We have to invest in ourselves. And this is critical. And we need a legislature that will ask the right question and hold the executive branch accountable to make the right decisions.
Ben, let me read some comments, and then you can comment. A lot of people don't want to call. I think the people who are watching have agreed that we are on point. So there's nothing for them to talk, because we have said it all in my judgment. Let me read some comments, and then we will let you comment, and then we can close this. All right, let me read some comments here quickly. This one from Mitch Wright, 20 million for the Ministry of Presidential Affairs. This is beyond wickedness. Here from Darling writes, Liberia will need another 1980. Corruption has taken over the entire country. Corruption is flourishing. Corruption has grown teeth, he writes. Here from Moses, yes, this is the delusional level at which the sons of the soils are brothers. The citizens are brainwashed to believe that this government is the best ever. We are even campaigning for McGill to return in the government. We are now very far away from reality, truth, he concludes. From this one is from Crystal Wright. Joshua administration is the worst ever in history. Nothing this government can get accomplished without serious setback, he writes. From Rubin's thing or Walkie, right? You guys can never be like President We are. You are right. We will never be like him. We are all uniquely different. It is scientific. His DNA is different from us. We can't argue with that. From non-man here. I'm watching from my home on the pipeline road, Lower Johnsonville. So you see, then Liberians are listening. They are watching from every corner in Liberia. Let us read more comments. From Jimmy. I mean, not Jimmy, but Darling AG. Jimmy, who told you those guys alleges are embarrassed? Who told you that? Those guys are laughing, and I won't be surprised. Can you imagine somebody, I think one of the enumerators engaged the media because the media was coming. And what happened was, gentlemen, The building that houses alleges that institution is filthy. And they got ashamed that the media mounted the cameras on the building. Of all the money they're receiving, they're just stealing. They can't even take care of the building. And he tried to stop the media. Our reporter was there and he explained everything to us. Let's hear from Zanambia Tia Taylor. The CDC government doesn't want to have census so that when they rig the election in 2023, we won't have the legitimate and precise data to use as a baseline, she writes. More comments here, and Ben, we will bring you in. Let's hear from Abraham Swain. Based on some of these economic crises, the person writes this way, we want to encourage Liberia to put someone like Honorable Simeon Freeman as president comes 2023. And he's saying, that one man will solve the problem. And Simeon Freeman is the guy. Talking about Simeon Freeman, I have to get back to him. We have some politics to talk. What is he up to? James Davis writes, getting cast is very difficult. I don't know. Is it cash? It's very difficult and heavy charges if you want cash. I think that's a credit from the ATM machine, and at most maximum $400 from the card with 10% charges. Can you look? You're trying to withdraw your own money from the ATM and they charge you 10%? Jimmy, can you imagine? That is a poor country. Let's hear from our man Brooks here. The MCC score is neither credible nor questionable. It's rather irrelevant. The everyday Liberia on the ground are not reaping any benefit. Superficial number means absolute nothing to the people that matters. He right. Ben, just adjust numbers. Time is fast, man. Let me hear your response.
Yes, I want to start with Mr. Brooks, and that was the focus of my argument here. You see, while we passed, ordinary Liberians will not experience any change in terms of the effect of the pass that we made. That was my focus. See, it's okay to pass the MCC, but if the numbers have been fabricated, then it's like a total loss. And I used to say a few years back, I will start saying it again, Liberia is the only country that looks good on paper. It looks good on paper, but the reality does not reflect what is on that paper. Right now, as we speak, Liberia has an unemployment rate of 4%, 4.1% unemployment. So what is considered employment in Liberia? What is considered employment? It's just a total fabrication. So this MCC thing, and the last thing I want to say on that, it shows that the international organization, maybe the MCC itself, we have to question them. Because if people are giving you this kind of data, at the least, we expect you to validate the data. We expect you to make sure that the data that you use for people to pass, they are corroborated data. But if we just passing people and we care less in terms of what those data reflects in the reality, then we are facilitating fraud. We are doing that. So, like the World Bank or whichever organization is sending information regarding Liberia, they should ensure that the data, they are authentic. They're authentic. And just like all the guys said in the post there, they are all telling us that everything that we are saying on this show is true. And to a large extent, the leaders of Liberia need to change direction. But the last thing I want to say before my other friend come in, what has happened over the last few days undermines greatly any claim Georgia has to re-election. It undermines it. There's no way Georgia can seek any re-election from anybody. Look at what we are having right now. It's a total failure. So I want to say thank you to Anthony. Thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to those who posted their remarks here. But I'm saddened and I'm also angry. But it is my hope that next year, Liberians will make the best decision. It is my hope that next year, Liberians will vote based on the potential for that individual to transform your lives. Not munya or emotional. No. Thank you.
Thank you. And folks, this is how we'll be coming to the close. Just wait a little for our closing remarks. We will start with the man from the nation's capital, Jimmy Eastman, for your closing.
Yeah, great discussion. There, we at a point where it's beginning more and more blaring that we're not doing enough to change where we are and where we're going. And we see Liberians show a sense of loyalty. I believe in loyalty. But if you are a parent and your loyalty to your child will tell you, say you don't try to help your child straighten up. If your child doing something wrong in the street, you don't try to get them corrected. If your child is not going to school and progressing so that it would be somebody you think you're doing well by allowing your child to do that, that's not the kind of loyalty we want. What we want is to be honest and sincere to ourselves and said certain things need to happen. This is not hate. This is not bitterness, nothing. But it's soberness that this thing we are doing is not heading nowhere. We are pretending. We are masquerading. It's not going to actually improve the country. It's going to break down. If eventually it's going to collapse. It has to collapse. And so let's be honest to ourselves. Let's be sincere and said, look, you have to do this. If you're not doing this, then we have to change. But if we're not going to be honest about it, if we're going to say it's all right, okay, if we're going to ignore it, if we're going to continue the impunity that we have seen in our country for years, not trying to straighten anything out, eventually it's going to collapse again. It just has to, because you cannot keep on bending and compromising rules. At a certain point, it's going to collapse. So we have to start turning the ship around. And the only way to turn the ship around starts with each one of us.
Thank you.
Being honest to ourselves. And when something is going wrong, we say it's wrong and we try to make efforts to correct it. We can still turn the ship around, but we have to be sincere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy Eastman said we have to be sincere if we want to turn the ship around. Benjamin Kopafana, you have a minute for your closing.
Well, what I want to say, thank you to everybody who tuned in today. We touched on a few issues. We talk about the MCC scores. And in my opinion, the MCC scores are not accurate because they do not reflect reality on the ground. We talk about, George Weah trip. I also want to emphasize that the trip cost Liberians a significant amount of cash. And I think based on the fact that we don't even know the size of the delegation, it's kind of hard for me to even estimate how much it would cost Liberian. But that trip should have been arranged in another way. Right now, especially so the length of the trip, it leaves a lot of people to scratch their head. Last thing I want to say with what is going on with the national census is a total debacle. There is no excuse. There is no excuse for this. You cannot say, oh, we didn't have time. This was years in the making. This is incompetence combined with just gross negligence. So it like I said from onset, this undermines any claim George Weah can make to his re-election bid. It is totally done. And I will urge every Liberian next year. Every Liberian next year, if you will vote, I want you to vote wisely. I want you to choose your leaders because of competence and the capacity for innovation. As we have talked on this show from time and time again, there are unavailability of jobs, especially so for our young people. Our young people are literally languishing. Most of them do the right things. They go to school, they do everything that they need to do, but they have no job because our leadership has no innovation. We need new leaders with new mindset. And I, Benjamin Kofa Fanier, I will be contesting in the next election. I will be the leader that Liberia has been waiting for in the Liberia need. I want to say thank you to Anthony. Thanks to Focus on Liberia. This is my home. I'm very happy to be here all the time and every time. And thank you to every Liberian hearing the sound of my voice. I appreciate you all, and I hope to be here next time.
Thank you, Benjamin Kofa Fanier, 2023 presidential aspirant. He's asking that he look his way for a new beginning in our country, Liberia. My friend Dennis Jah will always say to me, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, the truth will set you free. And I think I believe that. We've told you the truth when it comes to the MCC scorecard. We have told you the truth about the president's unusual trip, and we have told you the truth about Liberia Fiasco Census. What are you going to do with that truth? Will you use that truth to set yourself free? The date of political judgment is coming again. We have said enough. There's one thing we can do. We can vote for you. You have to vote for yourself. My understanding of what a vote does, it changes life. It changes a country's direction. That's what it does. If you don't know that, get that free lesson today. Who are you going to vote for? Do you even care if that person has a plan for your country? Are you one of those people just trying to marry this guy because he's handsome like I am? Jimmy, am I actually handsome? So don't be that person who was making a decision based on the physical appearance of your political candidate. Look at their plans and whether or not those plans are good enough for the country Liberia that is dying, that is tired, worried, and is in a hole. We need to get Liberia out. The truth will get us there. And that is why here I Focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, and promote nothing else but the truth. Until we catch you again, the song says we are all Liberians. That song takes us home now. And until we catch you again, I'm Anthony here on behalf of our crew here saying bye-bye and enjoy the song. We are all Liberians. Gentlemen, you are all on point, and bye-bye.
Our